It's good morning, Madeleine Cleary. Thank you for joining us here at Yellow Shelf.
Oh, thanks so much, Joanna, for having me. I'm thrilled.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. Congratulations. I have a copy of your book, The Butterfly Woman, which comes out on the 29th of April. So by the time this interview goes out, the book will be out.
Yes.
What do we need to know? Congratulations. Tell us all about this stunning book.
Yeah, so the Butterfly Women, it's a bit of a historical romp through early colonial Melbourne, but it's also a gritty murder mystery and it shines a light on some of the untold stories of women. It was actually inspired by my great grandmother who lived and worked in a brothel in Little Lon, which was the red light district of Melbourne back in the 19th century, which is quite an interesting story. And the story follows Harriett Gardiner, and her brother wants her to become a respectable wife, but all she wants to do is become a journalist. And Johanna Callaghan, and same spelling as you as well, Joe.
No, I know.
And Joanna Callaghan, she works at a brothel, and she doesn't want to scrub its floors anymore. She wants to actually become one of the women in silk. So there's a killer who's stalking Melbourne's dark laneways, and the two women are drawn together to hunt down the truth, alongside a very colourful band of interesting women of Little Lon.
Yeah, and look, I'm so glad you noted that because the character Joanna, is Irish, and I'm sure I've got Irish in me somewhere. So yeah, there was a lot of enjoyment when I was reading. But look, in all seriousness, this book's about often the complexities of women's life during this time, during the 1960s.
That's right.
Poverty, gender roles, expectations, and just that sheer survival. Do you want to tell us? I know you sort of tapped into it where there was a whole lot of extensive research that you did as far
Yeah.
as your own life snippets, the book. Tell us about that journey. So I'd really like to hear about, what inspired you to actually write the book and anything we need to know about your background.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. We actually had no idea that we were related to this very notorious Cleary Irish family of early Melbourne, and it was a bit of a secret. I think it was something that had been shunned by the family for years. So there was a bit of a gap in our family tree. And then when my dad retired, he really, and as a lot of retirees do, got onto ancestry.com and started doing some research. And a woman actually reached out to him on there, and this is like the moment everyone dreams about. And she's like, "Oh, do you know that you're related to this very notorious family, criminal family?" And Dad was like, "What? This is amazing." So this is back in 2014, and then he spent a few years digging in, and then he realized, yeah, there's this woman called Catherine Cleary, and Catherine is one of the main characters in the novel. Inspired, she's one of the brothel madams. So Catherine was my great grandmother, and yeah, we discovered through all these court reports that were in the newspapers at the day that these stories were emerging. So while the women of Little Lon, like my ancestor, were illiterate, so we don't have their diaries or journals, we actually have their words recorded in the newspapers of the day when they're on trial for things like vagrancy and being drunk and owning and working in houses of ill repute, which is just a fabulous description of
Yeah,
it.
isn't it?
But their lives were pretty tough as well. So there was, you mentioned poverty and gender and class, and what we started to learn by uncovering their stories is, Catherine, we don't know what happened to her husband, my great grandfather. He seems to have disappeared at some point. So she's a single mother. She's got kids. She's needing to survive. And so back with that, so I found out about this story. I got so curious about it when Dad's like, "You're related to a colonial prostitute." I was like, "That's amazing." And so I started doing my own research. Like Dad was doing a lot about the family history, but I started doing research about Melbourne and trying to understand her circumstances, trying to understand why. And particularly when she's being described in the newspapers as evil and an infamous wretch and all these types of things. And I wanted to know why. So I was living in Canberra at the time, and Dad was living in Melbourne. And it really was something that drew us together, this research. And then I actually was living overseas for a bit while I was writing the book. I was on a diplomatic posting in China. And funnily enough, that's where I wrote it because we were there during COVID. I had some time on my hands. I'd done all this research back in Canberra. And I had Dad's hundreds of newspaper articles. And so I'm like, there's a story to be told here. So that's sort of, yeah, it took a couple of years to write. And then I'm really lucky to see it now out in print.
And is this your first book? This is
It is, yeah, it's my
yeah,
debut
that's
novel.
amazing. I love the backstories and finding out about the inspiration. You did mention you've worked as a diplomat, and did I read correctly? You've also worked in a bookstore for a period of time. Like there's just
Yes.
all these wonderful synergies of why now you're an author.
I know. Well, I was very lucky. I actually met my husband. We were both working at a bookshop together, Borders before they closed down. So this is back
Yeah.
when I was 19. And the first day of my shift, I walked in and my husband, well, my now husband was there, and I was introduced to him. And I
Wow.
went home to my mother, and my mum and I are both very, very much feminists,
Yes.
and I'm very independent. And she said to me, I said to her, Mum, guess what? I've just met the guy I'm going to marry.
Wow.
And
There
15
you go.
odd
Here
years
we
later.
are telling the story. That's
So yeah, books have always been really important, I think, to
yeah.
us and to my family. My mum's she was a teacher and then became later a librarian.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been an avid reader. So while this is my first published book, I've also practiced written other books, which I will never see the light of day. But that was kind of the
The
groundwork,
practice,
the
the journey.
foundation.
Never say never. I've spoken to many authors who've reached back to some of their earlier work.
Oh no, Joanne, I know this is
Okay. Well, look, I'd love to hear in the future that you're writing more because this was a stunning read from my perspective. I will like to mention you're also a podcast host. We were just
yes,
chatting about that before. You host the show The Book Deal, which is
yes.
so many synergies to Yellow Shelf. So I'm going to get you back on, but you do lots of wonderful things around books. It's fabulous.
I love it. And a lot of people, because I also work full time, still in the public service. And I think I've been doing this for a year. I'm not sure if it's sustainable, but we'll see. I do love my work as well. I love my career. And it's nice, I think, as a writer to have that balance and have those time pressures on you as well. I think that really sort of motivates you to get the writing done. So yeah, we'll see. I am writing book two at the moment as well. So
Ooh.
yeah, it's all in the works, which is very exciting.
Fabulous. Well, whenever the time's right, there'll always be a space in Yellow Shelf to bring you back. My final question is about how, if we're listening, if we're watching, how do we connect with you? I know you're on Substack. So tell us, do we follow you on Instagram? Point us in the direction of where we get the book and how we connect with you.
Yeah, so the book, like you said, will be in all good bookshops on the 29th of April, which is very exciting. I am actually today going to Sorrento Writers Festival, and so it's going to be out today, which is the 24th
Oh,
of April. So it's coming out early. So it'll be the first time seeing the bookstore. I am on Instagram, so Madeleine Cleary Writes. And yes, my Substack, if you go onto my website, so it's madelinecleary.com.au, there's a link to my newsletter there. So
oh,
it's all about the behind the scenes in the author's life. So, and there'll be some giveaways and all sorts of things as well.
yes. Well, everyone here knows Yellow Shelf is on Substack. I'll put all those links in the show notes to make it really easy. Congratulations. Enjoy this journey of book launch. I know, yeah, you've got a really extensive book tour, so congratulations. But highly recommend it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Joanna. It's been great.
Cheers.